My parents insisted I delay my marriage so my brother could secure a spouse ahead of me, since he'd impregnated a married lady who then abandoned him with the infant. When I declined, they labeled me self-centered, so I proceeded with the ceremony without their presence. The diamond on my finger sparkled as I spun it thoughtfully, nursing a mug of tea in my parents' sitting area. Arranging the nuptials had been a whirlwind yet thrilling endeavor. I devoted weeks to perfecting every aspect, the location, the gown, the invitees. This union wasn't merely a tribute to the bond between my partner and me, it marked a milestone we'd long anticipated. Then my mother's words sliced through the quiet, offhand as if proposing a tweak to a supper menu. She mentioned they'd reconsidered my nuptials and concluded it wisest to push it back. I paused, my cup suspended midair. It required a second to absorb her statement. When I inquired the reason, she eyed me as though the answer were obvious. She explained my younger sibling, Reed, required opportunity to locate a partner for himself. She elaborated that it wouldn't appear proper for me to wed first while Reed, their prized son, faced difficulties. Difficulties wasn't the term I'd choose. Reed had recently fathered a child with a wedded woman. That lady had vowed to abandon her household for him, but vanished instead, saddling him with a newborn and a wake of turmoil. My parents aimed to preserve appearances. They dreaded guests at my event viewing Reed as a lone father at 21, a failure in their eyes. When I questioned how this related to my ceremony, my father interjected. He declared that cannot to unite in crises and favor the collective welfare. He asserted that by deferring my nuptials, I'd grant Reed space to study his existence and discover a lady to assist in rearing his offspring. It was simply equitable. Equitable. My veins chilled. They expected me to stall my future to offset Reed's impulsive actions. I'd long recognized Reed as their darling. In childhood, he was indulged excessively. He flunked courses, sparked brawls, and mastered draining our parents' resources. Conversely, I toiled academically, labored diligently, yet received scant praise compared to his mere presence. But this plumbed new depths. I probed if they meant it, striving to steady my tone, though fury surged within. My father replied as if reciting facts. He claimed Reed had ever been the one brimming with potential, the one destined to uphold the family legacy honorably. I, conversely, would wed into another lineage and depart. My efforts were fleeting. The rage erupted. I pressed why they believed my ceremony should depend on Reed's capacity to mend his own errors, why they failed to grasp the offensiveness and inequity of their request. Why they couldn't, just once, rejoice for me. My mother adopted that reprimanding pitch she reserved for my defiance. She branded me egoistic and narrow-minded. She stressed that kin superseded all and that as the senior child, I bore duty to safeguard my junior. My partner, who'd remained silent nearby, at last voiced his thoughts. He argued this wasn't kinship, it was perpetuating Reed's misdeeds once more. He noted we'd mailed invitations, secured services, and tendered payments. Deferring wasn't merely absurd, it was unfeasible. That's when Reed sauntered in. He'd been listening from the pantry and opted to contribute. He insisted his plight wasn't his doing and that I ought to feel shame for withholding aid. He alleged I envied him as the preferred child and always would be. Envied. I chuckled, devoid of mirth. I clarified I harbored no envy, only revulsion. Revulsion at his nerve to impose after wrecking his path. Revulsion that our parents contorted to buffer him from repercussions yet again. Revulsion that they'd demand I forfeit my bliss for his ease. Reed grinned, reclining against the frame as if victorious in argument. He remarked it wasn't his blame that Mom and Dad cherished him more. He suggested if I objected to the dynamic, perhaps I should self-reflect. I retorted I wasn't the discard of a wedded lady. I advised he cease barking here and tend to his infant. My father boomed, ordering me to mind my speech. He warned that if I couldn't honor their desires, perhaps I should reconsider their attendance at the event. That struck like a blow. Yet I stood firm. I informed him that if they fixated on elevating Reed's spiraling image above mine, perhaps they ought to skip my ceremony. Perhaps I required no attendees who undervalued me so. Silence engulfed the space. My mother's expression warped in astonishment and wrath. She accused me of theatrics and ingratitude despite their provisions. She cited shelter, sustenance, and schooling they'd bestowed. The minimum I owed was reciprocation by aiding my sibling in crisis. I rose, trembling with ire. I declared I owed nothing, not after decades treated as discardable in my home. I proclaimed I'd ceased contorting for those viewing me as a launchpad for Reed's triumphs. I stated their basics were parental norms. Any guardian would provide without query. My partner rose beside me, palm on my shoulder. He affirmed we'd not defer, and they could join if behaving civilly. My father shook his head, grumbling of my grave error. My mother vowed absence unless I relented. Reed smirked anew, predicting my remorse. That evening, I wept with my partner, not from decision doubt, but the sting of my kin's indifference to my joy. As he embraced me, assuring we forged our own kin, I affirmed my choice. Update 1. I awoke next day emotionally spent. The clash with parents and Reed replayed endlessly, their barbs reopening wounds. My parents had ever ignored their bias, but this overt dismissal of my delight stunned. Unsure when my device hummed incessantly that dawn. My parents had swiftly mobilized kin to their cause. Missives flooded from maternal aunts, uncles, cousins, all echoing how I dared dishonor parents and neglect brother in distress. None from paternal side yet, curiously. My meddling aunt accused me of callousness. She claimed as eldest, I must model grace. Lacking mercy for kin, how could my union thrive? I attempted dismissal, yet her barbs pierced. Remarkable how rapidly they rallied for Reed. None seemed to mind my milestone, meant to honor my love, was commandeered by his folly. Soon my mother rang. Her tone oozed false warmth, manipulative as ever. She claimed empathy for my upset, but kin endured. I must sublimate for collective good. I halted her. I reiterated no deferral, no allowing Reed or others to hijack. She tried interjecting, but I persisted. I accused perpetual pampering of Reed, endless rescues. I'd ceased complicity. Her demeanor iced instantly. Warmth vanished, supplanted by frost. She warned if I spurned their offerings, perhaps I merited no wedding role for them. I replied that was their call. Lacking backing on my pivotal day, perhaps absence suited all. I caught her gasp, but ended before retort. My partner, Dan, overhearing, enveloped me, affirming correctness. He stated we needed no half-hearted celebrants. I assented, yet heartache pressed. Over the week, opposition escalated. More kin echoed selfishness and gratitude. Some insinuated envy of Reed, inability to share spotlight. Envy. I scoffed each instance. Envy of what? Turmoil and folly, parents perpetually mending? No, fury consumed me. Fury at enabling leading here. Fury at expecting my sacrifice for their facade of Reed's flawlessness. One day, Cousin Ivy texted concern. We'd ever been tight, she alone showed equity. Paternal side. Detailing all, she recoiled. She disbelieved parents prioritizing Reed anew. She vowed attendance regardless. Her allegiance warmed immensely. It affirmed solitude's illusion, despite feelings. Days passed, I immersed in preparations with vigor. Dan and I finalized charts tunes. We trimmed invites. We sought joy, not strife. Invited steadfast supporters, Ivy, select cousins, friends. Maternal side excised. I knew it stoked flames, but indifference reigned. I'd finished. Reed, predictably, lobbed another barb. He texted lengthily, patronizing of family rupture, my ruin of his existence. Hoped I relished Bradon, foretold regret isolating kin. I ignored. But I'd ensure his remorse. Dan and I pressed planning. Doubt pangs met his reminders of our new kin untainted. Nearing the day, burdens lifted. Years chasing approval evaporated. Update 2. By second month of relentless badgering, I'd reached limit. Parents' guilt ploys, Reed's cunning notes, kin's loyalty sermons propelled me over. Time to reveal the truth. I journaled Reed's every blunder. No brief list. Cataloged all, crashing dad's vehicle, blaming me, fortune spent on failed ventures, parade of exploited, betrayed, abandoned partners. Included latest, the married woman tryst, child ditched. Writing clarified Reed's recklessness scale. Parents had insulated him, excusing failures, ignoring havoc. Finished, I resolved exposure. If they smeared me, I'd reciprocate amplified. I formed a chat, including all meddlers, friends, kin, locals, coworkers, and snared in rumor. Converted list to damning bullets, latest first. Detailed seducing wedded lady, deluding departure, stunned by abandonment with babe. Explained parents' shield from shame, dreading golden boy as lone dad failure at 21. Retraced origins, bribed schooling, triple firings for ineptitude, once emptying my accounts via my card, unapologetic. For unaware, clarified affair. Branded Reed liar, adulterer, boundaryless. Cautioned guarding daughters from his traps. Attached screenshots, Reed's, parents, kin's demands, selfishness charges, compliance threats. Final note. This the man parents demand I favor over joy. This the enabled parasite. I reject delaying nuptials or joy for perpetual taker. If others deem me wrong, volunteer daughters as his rescuers. Sent. Repercussions instant. Chat erupted. Shock, anger, sparse defenses. Majority horrified. Private notes of astonishment, unaware of depth, only parents gloss. Neighbors appreciated alerts, vowed distance. Cousin Ivy phoned pride in defiance, eternal support. Reed raged. Texts vilified, demanded retraction. Claimed life ruin, credibility lost. I replied singly, you wrecked yourself, Reed. Truth only. I'd promised regret. Parents followed. Mom phoned quaking fury, accused destroying Reed. Humiliated them publicly. I unleashed, embarrassment theirs for rearing entitled wreck. Mastered creating inconvenienced dragger. Dad claimed excess. I severed. No moral high ground after lifelong enabling. Ever weighed actions or assumed I'd eternally mop. Concluded no need approval or presence. Support Reed sans me. Day's end, chat hushed. Irreversible. Dan found me reviewing Deluge. On revealing, he silently clasped my hand. Necessary, he said. Not your fix. Content. I'd held line, joy undictated. Update 3, my wedding day surpassed visions. Radiant sun framed the triumph I'd battled for. Despite prelude turmoil, dawn brought buoyancy. Pre-ceremony highlight, Dad's half-sister, Aunt Jane, aided dressing. Jane, ever joy's light. The fun Aunt gifting, consoling with treats, backing against bias. Grandfather's pet, irking Dad. Rift worsened, yet she unwavering. Asking her aisle escort teared her, hugged fiercely. Music cue, garden entry, pride defiance surged. Jane gripped firmly, chin up. Dad would view pics I knew. Almost heard his rage, betrayal via her. Indifference. Right lovely sincere. Dan gazed as sole existent. Momentarily I trusted. Vows exchanged, serenity flooded. Fought for bliss, self-chosen future. Festivities enchanted. Loyal kin, friends reveled till dawn. No tensions, murmurs, just bliss. Drama-free felt liberating. I craved minimal future strife. Post-day browsing pics, congrats, anticipated backlash. Indeed, Dad phoned. Voicemail ignored, predicted. Persistent calls, powered off. Later, texts barraged. How dare you? 1. Jane escort? Humiliating? Final embarrassment? Proud? Slap, hope satisfaction. Onslaught intensified, fury palpable. I laughed. Absurd. No reply. Apologize for autonomy? Regret choosing constant? None. Jane amused too. Shared texts, she scoffed, let fester. Perhaps self-centrality dawns. Read mute. Likely managing expose aftermath. Him stewing reputation shards smirking. Dan anchored, affirming righteousness, celebration, entitlement sans toxicity. Chose joy, he said viewing pics. No shame. Correct. Dad's wrath, Reed's hush, gratefully kin judgment couldn't dim. Texts dwindled, but new unfinished. He clung grudges. I cared nil. Let him seethe. No regrets. Bitterness wouldn't sour. Handle own chaos, I mused. Life awaits. No rear glance. Update 4. Dan and I reached honeymoon, idyllic coastal haven dreamed long. Surreal waking to surf symphony, liberated stress, drama, savoring marital dawn. Initial days device off. Craved undisturbed bliss with Dan. Midweek, curiosity prevailed. Powered on, notifications avalanche. Mostly felicitations, event snaps, smiling. Then missed calls. Dozen plus from mom, single day. Dismissed. Whatever, postponable. No honeymoon gloom. Next morn, her text. Feigned politeness, honeymoon wishes. Abrupt pivot, Dad, read devastated by my inflicted shame. Worse imaginable. Read friendless, workplace tattle, locals murmur disgrace. Conservative neighbors, I disdain them. Dad mortified Jane escorted. Climax, my causation demanded recompense for trauma. Audaciously sought funds, vaguely, minimal post-pain. I gaped. Dan queried, showed, he guffawed. Utterly absurd, he said. No response? None. But plan formed. Forwarded to pre-wedding exposed chat. Same airing affair, demands. Minutes, explosion. Outrage. Dad's cousin, silent prior, urged cease harassment, shame for treatment. Recalled begging deferral for Reed, abandoning refusal. Another decried post-event pestering. Reed ex-friend confirmed desertion, never fond, trouble magnet. Satisfying. Dad's coworkers, aunt added, no laundry qualms. Urged self-examination. Mortified association. Nosy neighbor Mary group texted Sue for badgering, extortion, offer testimony if needed. Buzz relentless. Parents defended. Mom context twist just. Dad spiteful, word warping. Unbelieved. Backpedaling worsened, both exited. Assumed shame threshold. Not finished. Re-added, hilarious. Leave voluntarily, no ease. Dan cautioned bear poking. Not poking, tethering. Their discomfort theirs. Week's end, permanent exit. Reputation tatters, self-inflicted. I relished allies. But desired zero contact. Dan and I plotted cross-state city move. We'll see.